With these inspiring words by Marshall Gantz, I think we can pave the way towards a physical discussion. If anything, we keep from him that interaction needs to be in place. So, sticking with that part of the Atlantic, I'll turn to Jeffrey Kopstein. Jeffrey is the author of a very famous book on the assault of the state, and I think he's going to share some thoughts from that. I'm also going to challenge you a little bit to defy Stalin when he said that it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes. So by extension of that, is the administration the problem, or is those that elect the administration the problem?
Okay.
Jeffrey, to you.
Thank you very much. Is the microphone working? Good. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to come to the conference. I was just in Los Angeles yesterday for the beginning of the riots there, so I have a little bit to say about that too, and to thank you to Prime Minister Tsipras for inviting me here. I haven't been to Athens since I was 17 years old on a high school basketball tournament. I was brought here, and it's changed a lot in 50 years. The challenges we face are indeed profound ones, and you've put your finger on, I think, one of the most important ones. Saving the global order the global liberal order is going to require a coalition. And that coalition, making coalitions is interesting because the big enemy of the left, I think, right? This is my view, has always been the insistence on purity and the kind of the splitting that goes into that. And if we're ever going to solve these problems, I think we have to make a genuine coalition. But the question is, a coalition to do what, right? And I'm going to stick to the United States for a couple of minutes here. As my colleagues Stephen Levitsky and Daniel Ziblatt have argued, the efforts of Trump and others like him to undermine informal norms of tolerance and forbearance while promoting their own personality cults, they definitely pose a serious threat to democracy. Ignoring court orders, selectively denying due process to foreign residents of the United States, arresting them, deporting them, undermining the independence of universities and cultural institutions, the use of the military to deal with unrest, right, which is illegal in the United States, unless under very restrictive circumstances. And the undermining of federalism, right, which is really what's happening in California right now. It is a battle royale between the president and the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, over who has the actual right to deploy soldiers to the streets. All of these are multifaceted threats to democracy, and facing them down is going to require a gigantic amount of courage and creativity. But I think to get at your question, focusing on these obvious threats, and I think they're obvious to everyone in here, we may miss something even bigger. And the new authoritarians, they don't oppose elections. That's the interesting thing about them. They're actually pretty good at winning elections, according to, and even under the rules of Constitution. I want to point our attention elsewhere for 1 minute. Trump and others like him are not merely attacking democracy, but in some ways they're attacking modern government itself. What do I mean by that? Their fury towards what they call the administrative states, or sometimes, when they're conspiratorially minded, the deep state. It's in fact a very typical reaction of a pre-modern leader towards all forms of bureaucratic proceduralism that might place limitations on their personal authority. There's a word for this kind of leader and the alternative order they're proposing. The German sociologist Max Weber called it patrimonialism, a much older form of rule in which the state itself is regarded as a kind of family business of sorts, the personal property of the ruler. Patrimonial leaders depict themselves as the fathers of their nation, as preservers of traditional ethnic and gender hierarchies, and they insist most above all, on personal loyalty above competence. This is the order that Trump is trying to build in the United States today. So I think that rather than looking, and lots of words get thrown around, rather than looking at theories of fascism, or calling this person a fascist and that person a fascist, I think it's probably more productive and more appropriate to look at the novel The Godfather, right? And Donald Trump, not as a would-be Hitler, but as a would-be Don Corleone. And the United States, in the vision of international relations, would simply be the head of the five families, sitting at the table with Vladimir Putin, Don Cheech, or whoever. Now, why should we care about this? First of all, it's important to care about it because patrimonialism was the dominant form of rule throughout most of human history. It was little more than the extended household of the ruler. The state did not exist as a separate entity. This was the rule of the symbolic father of the people. And exactly this idea is embodied in Trump's own words, recently articulated. He who saves his country does not violate the law. This form of state wasn't powerless. It was actually quite good at exercising coercion against its own people. But what it could not do, what it does not do well, is performing the functions of modern government. These rulers traditionally appointed family and friends, soothsayers, cronies, magicians. They persecuted, quote, impure foreigners, and they promoted a lot of incompetence, disease, poverty, suffering. Now, interestingly enough, modern war and modern capitalism is also ultimately what brought about a change of all of this, and the introduction of what Weber called legal rational bureaucracy, in which legitimacy was bestowed on institutions that followed rules and norms. Modern legal states made the world ultimately pretty safe, largely healthy, and pretty wealthy. Not perfect, but much better than whatever happened before. The modern state is what is now under assault. Americans, above all, love to hate the state. But without it, our air would be poisonous, our water unsafe, our children taught by incompetence, our public health systems non-existent, and our money would be worthless. But can Trump actually pull this off? Can he actually do it? That's really your question. Now, the interesting thing is pre-modern rulers didn't have to deal with modern states. They could just do stuff. The main job for Donald Trump and his advisors, by contrast, is in demolishing existing bureaucratic capacity. It's easy to make fun of Elon Musk. Very easy to make fun of Elon Musk. Who didn't do a very good job in wrecking the state. He didn't know much about the state. He was strangely incurious about the organizations that he was designed with wrecking. But there are others, especially the authors of Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, who are intellectually serious. They know what they're doing. They know very well what they're doing. And if the left was surprised, it was surprised mostly not by the authoritarianism of Donald Trump when he got elected, but by the speed with which you can start to deconstruct the modern state. But what will be at the end of this? It won't be libertarian freedom. It will not be Christian nationalism. It will not be a unitary executive rationally doing things. It will be the patrimonial leader, the Godfather. Now, am I ignoring democracy? I don't think so. That's the point. Elections themselves are acts of administration. They require modern states. Think about the campaign against election workers, electoral procedures. They are part and parcel of patrimonial rule. So if we want to have a democracy, we need to defend the modern state itself. Lastly, am I ignoring the problem of capitalism and redistribution? I know progressives worry about this. I worry about it sometimes too. But I think it would be a mistake to see Trump as a normal, low-tax, small-state Republican. Let's look at the inauguration of 2020. What happened? Remember the inauguration and the stage? Who was on the stage? Who was sitting in the front row? The oligarchs, the capitalists. Now, were they there as a sign that they controlled Donald Trump? Or were they there because Donald Trump controlled them? Trump did not invite them as a sign of subservience to them. Musk, Bezos, and others were there to show loyalty to him. Americans tend to think that being rich makes you powerful. In fact, what the Trump era is showing is that being powerful makes you rich. And that is a huge difference. Almost everything we've seen so far, and especially in this latest little fallout between Trump and Musk, shows that. A one-sided focus on capital will blind us to this fact. In the world that Musk and his Silicon allies are trying to make, supplication, kissing the ring, is as important for entrepreneurs as innovation. Trump will not downsize the state. It is not neoliberalism. He will repurpose it. He will fill it with loyalists. The prediction is an underprovision of public goods that markets need to function and normal people need in order to survive. And once, the really bad news here is once we've deconstructed the modern state, there's no guarantee we'll get it back when we need it. We all remember COVID and those first weeks when Donald Trump came out and told us to do what? To drink bleach. He told us to drink bleach while the experts sat on the sideline, the state. And what I wanted my state. I did not want Donald Trump telling me to drink bleach. And at that moment, I wanted my state, and I could not have it. That is my concern as much as inequality, the role of oligarchs. I worry about whether we're going to have this grand achievement. So if there is one thing to be done about all of this, that is to reinforce, to reform. We can disagree about tax rates. We can do all of that. But to reinforce the incredible achievement that the modern state actually is. And we're only going to appreciate it as we appreciate many things when it comes under threat. So thank you very much.
Thank you.